I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die historic on the Fury Road.
Welcome to the Mad Max Minute, where we remember that not all who wander are lost in Mad Max Fury Road, 1 minute at a time. I'm Rick.
And I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about minute 114, which begins with the philosophical musings of the first history man, and it ends with financial controller Alastair Jenkins. Wrapping up the week and the movie with us are everyone's favorite Mad Max Fury Road podcasters. It's Yuri Lowenthal and Travis Sentell from the You Are Awaited podcast.
Thank you for having us again. And the only Mad Max Fury Road podcasters, I think is what you neglected to say. But
yes, well, we'll take
but we all know. We all know who we're talking about.
The best and the worst, your favorite and least favorite, right here, live.
All rolled into one.
You're like several slices of a Venn diagram all rolled together into a beautiful piñata ball.
It's
no one's ever given me a nicer compliment in my life.
I feel like I should kiss you right now.
That's beautiful. I know you guys have questions, and we have questions for you. So I don't know how you want to run this, but man, do I have questions for the two of you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, we need to catch up because we haven't talked to you guys since Road Warrior. And given how Thunderdome was and how insane the entirety of this movie was, how have you guys been?
Great. It's nice to sort of jump back into the world of this film because we stepped away. And strangely enough, Travis and I are both going to see Fury Road at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. They're screening it outdoors in just a couple of days.
Oh, nice.
This is our warm-up for going back into the universe.
Yeah.
Although I will say, when we watched the minute, which was just basically the music and a list of people we got to meet along the way.
Yep.
It was really invigorating, and we were drumming in the air and hugging each other and gallivanting and, spraying our face with silver paint. It was great.
It's been a while since you posted something in the feed for You Are Awaited. I didn't go back. I know I'm supposed to be good and do my homework.
You haven't missed anything.
But did you actually reach the 52 episode mark that you were shooting for?
We did.
We did.
Awesome.
We did it. We did a year on the Fury Road.
A year on the Fury Road. Many of the names that pop up in this minute were guests on our show. We were happy to remember as we were going through there. We're like, oh right, that guy and that guy
and that guy. We stalked at a screening and asked him to come to his office. That was cool. It was a trip down memory lane.
The benefits of living in Los Angeles,
being in the right place at the right time, sort of situation.
And being shameless also helps.
That too.
Yeah, the best we got is emailing. We email a lot.
Yep.
Okay, I would argue the best we've had so far was talking to Mark right in week 1.
Oh, yeah, and he just fell in our lap voluntarily.
Was it Mark Mangini? Who was it?
Or Mark Sexton?
Mark Sexton.
Mark Sexton.
Yeah, that guy.
He's great.
I love that
Mark
guy.
Sexton was the first person to wish me a happy birthday this year in the world because of his time zone.
Oh,
very
nice.
Very sweet.
I don't even think I remembered. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I
3
forgot.
months ago. It doesn't matter.
Mark has been a lot of fun to have in the listener group because aside from people like Shem Herman and Melvin Zed, who are just the fans that have taken hours and days and weeks out of their lives to focus on Mad Max, Mark will come in and he'll just validate something or confirm something or say, oh, wow, Rick, that's a really interesting way of thinking at it, which is his, I'm sure, veiled way of saying, wow, that is a whole load of nonsense, and he should not repeat that.
Yeah,
that's Mark.
He's the nicest man alive. Like, that's just what it comes down to, which is not what you'd expect given the, the timber tone and gore of the film, but he's just a gentle, wonderful soul. So that's one of the great things about doing podcasts. You get to meet wonderful people and get to maintain relationships with people you admire and respect, and, hopefully they become your friends at some point.
Yeah.
It's fun to text back and forth with Mark sometimes, and he'll talk about sitting at his desk and looking across the room at George Miller and how he will sit him down and have him listen to episodes of the podcast to give us feedback on what George Miller thinks about us. And it just gives us no end of anxiety to think about.
No,
I'm
not
sure.
anxiety, nerd boner.
Sure.
Just a pure nerd boner, man. That's not anxiety. That's excitement. That's great. That's great. If he does it more than once, it means he likes it. If he did it one time and never again, then George would think these guys are jokers, whatever. But if George does it twice, I bet you it means he thinks there's some sort of value.
Mark's never told us stories about him playing episodes of our podcast for George Miller, so you're doing something right.
Yeah, Mark, what's up, dude? What's up with that?
That's
Mark
right,
Sexton.
Mark Sexton. And anything to inspire George Miller to make another Mad Max movie, which is looking like less and less likely at any given moment.
I mean, it's been, as we're recording this, 4 years.
When we first started recording, we were sure that by the time we got to the end of Fury Road, we would be ready to just roll right into a new movie.
You're the Game of Thrones of podcasting here.
Right, you've killed it.
Sure.
You've outpaced your source material, guys. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to riff it from here, and good luck figuring out a final season.
Do we need to just make up our own new movie?
All right. Given how the end of Game of Thrones went, and I can confidently say this because this episode is coming out in December, so if you haven't seen Game of Thrones by now, I know I've said this before, but if you haven't seen it by now, oh well, I'm sorry. But given how the seasons of Game of Thrones that outpaced the book went, I would caution us against doing our own Mad Max movie and breaking that down minute by minute.
I agree, although Yuri and I are thinking about a new podcast where we break down minute by minute the new Mad Max movie that doesn't exist yet and just giving our take on it. So we think it might be great. It might be great.
I'm in favor of that.
I'm sort of not even joking about that as I'm thinking about it.
I think you just created our next podcast.
All right, there you go. You heard it here
I'd love that idea. You know what? You guys do that, and then maybe like 2-3 years after you're done with that, we'll come in and do the exact same material.
Yes,
but like way more picky.
I love where this is going.
Yeah.
I have been spending quite a while over the course of this season listening to your episodes bit by bit, and every so often I'll come in with some sort of observation that you guys made that we completely missed, and I am kind of attributing that to like missing the forest for the trees. Like we're right in the thick of it in the underbrush, and you guys are taking that more zoomed out look at things. So I love that there are these two sources that people can go to.
No, it makes us happy too. I mean, the more people can think about that movie, the better the world is, probably, just because there's so much to think about.
Yeah, and I imagine you guys at this point agree that this movie holds up to that level of scrutiny, to a minute by minute.
Absolutely, it really does.
Yeah.
I think we could probably start the movie over and come up with new content.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question for you, and I'd love to hear, I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about how the year's been for you. I know it's less interesting to listeners because they've been on that journey with you, but, we're curious to hear more. But I remember when we got to this minute of the film, for us it was this 4-minute film, there was this deep sense of, like, nostalgia already sitting in, and a sort of sadness, a deep sort of sadness that sort of journey was over for us, and also a sense of completion. And the movie leaves you feeling like you've done something or been somewhere, been through something. How are you feeling about coming to this phase of the process?
That's kind of a tough question.
Oh, yeah?
I'm feeling relieved. It's been a long 3 years that we've been working on Mad Max. But at the same time, it's been 3 years that Mad Max has been part of our daily lives. We think about Mad Max every single day in one aspect or another. Whether it's preparing to podcast, whether it's editing, whether it's doing social media. So that's all going to end.
Yeah. What are you going to do with your lives now?
I don't know.
Empty lives.
I'm going to take more naps.
Yeah.
Well done.
Rick is not stopping. He already has a project lined up.
Oh yeah.
Of course he does.
There's that whole extra project that I've probably mentioned before. I don't think I need to get into it on air. But aside from like main feed stuff, we've still got Patreon stuff that's coming out all through the end of this season, and then we're actually going to be doing a couple of more hiatus style episodes after the season ends, watching some movies that we didn't quite get to in between the gaps of the other 3. So I mean, there will be a bit more Mad Max Minute, just not on Mad Max specifically in the main feed, and the Patreon feed is just me reading the books.
Yeah. Two things that we, Patreon and social media are things that we definitely did not do. That
also 3 things. Might have been
editing our show. Right. That's another thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the most time consuming. I think we spend way more time editing than researching and prepping and recording put together.
Well, definitely more than researching.
We can speak to that.
Yeah, right. We're definitely with you there.
Yeah. There's something about epic films, like when you finish the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you come in to the Shire and you feel like you've been somewhere and you feel like you as a viewer have changed. You're a different person after that journey than you were. And I think that, Star Wars Minute, I guess, kicked off this sort of format, unless I'm missing someone and miscrediting this, but I don't think Star Wars has the same sense of journey and fundamental personal change that
certainly not these days.
Yeah, these days for sure. But Lord of the Rings, and I would argue Mad Max has that. So I think you're in a pretty unique situation to talk about like the staying power and fundamental changing journeyman power of Mad Max. So I'm just interested by that journey you guys have been on. It seems pretty cool.
It definitely feels like a journey, and I feel a lot of sympathy for the quote that we see popping up at the beginning of this minute, the whole, where must we go, we who wander this wasteland in search of our better selves. And I feel like if you change a few words around, like, where must we go, we who podcast on the internet in search of good content. Because, like Julia said, since 2017, January 2017, we've been doing this podcast, releasing episodes 3 to 5 times a week, not including hiatus stuff. And if I didn't have a roadmap that I had written up months ago, I would feel very lost right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. What was the date of your first episode? When did you guys begin? When did you start? I'm only asking because it's been going 3 years and I've had a project going for 3 years, and I'm curious to see exactly how closely they line up.
Our first episode dropped January 30th, 2017.
Oh.
2017.
We did 5 episodes a week for Mad Max and Road Warrior.
Yep.
And then we switched to formats in 2018.
So my son is only slightly older than your podcast. That was my project. Wow.
Yeah, it's weird to think that the You Are Awaited podcast was technically running while we were doing other content.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
We overlapped a little?
I I think so.
I hope that's true.
That sounds right.
We have no sense of time. We're old and confused and decrepit, so we don't know if that's true or not. It could be. It could be true.
Yeah, because the latest episode of You Are Awaited dropped on February 23rd, 2017.
Okay, so we overlapped by like a month.
Wow.
If we had only known then,
right,
we could have been done like a whole year sooner. Well, I mean, if Yuri and Travis have already done it, I guess we don't need to talk about it.
We covered it all, you guys. We covered it all.
Now, I have a quick question for you guys. Going back and watching Mad Max Fury Road and doing it 4 minutes at a time, I know that you've mentioned it on the podcast, but have you ever had the deep yearning to really go through minute by minute, like do what we did?
I don't know if I felt the yearning to do that because of what we did, but I definitely think, and thought as we were going through 4 minutes at a time, if we had really considered at the beginning, we could have done it minute by minute. We definitely realized that, and as I was mentioning before, it definitely holds up to that kind of drill down, scrutiny. And I mean, the world is so beautifully created and mapped.
Like many of the things in our life, it was a distinctly unconsidered decision on our part, where we just said to ourselves, I want to hang out with you more often. And Yuri's like, yeah, it'd be fun to hang out with you. And we went to see Mad Max. Yuri's like, you like this movie? Come see it in the theater with me. I went. And we're like, we just found ourselves talking about it a lot. And we just arbitrarily picked 4 minutes as something we thought, well, if it doesn't hold up that well, then we can, scrap this idea. But 4 minutes gives us enough, we think, to talk about for an hour. And I would say off air within like 3 or 4 episodes, we stopped the recording and we go, well, 4 minutes it's too much. We need to do 2 minutes or 3 minutes or maybe even 1 minute. Like we realized that pretty quickly. I remember us having that conversation and going, well, there's more in here than we thought, actually, when you sort of delve into it. So I bet we could have. Although our attention spans are small enough that maybe 4 minutes was right for us.
Probably. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Since completing your podcast, has there been another movie that has similarly inspired you that you have thought about doing a minute by minute or chunk of minutes at a time podcast?
Aquaman. Sorry, go on, Yuri.
No. And it's funny because we have had this conversation before. What movie should we do next? And there haven't been any that inspired this level of mad love.
I have to say, I think it's because of the way the studio system works. Because this movie gestated for 17 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why, famously, I'm gonna compare George Miller to James Joyce for a second. Give me a moment here.
We'll get Mark to make him listen to this podcast, this episode of the podcast.
George,
sure.
I'm talking to you, buddy. James Joyce famously said, "Ulysses took me 21 years to write. It should take you 21 years to read." The number's wrong, but the quote's right. And I feel that way about this film. That very rarely in LA or in the Hollywood movie system do you get more than 18 months to maybe 3 years to gestate a film, to really have it actively being cooked and baked and filled out and fleshed out. And I think that Fury Road specifically is very rare in this, because not only is it a long gestating project, it's coming on the heels of working out the kinks for 3 full films. It's just a unicorn, in my opinion, in Hollywood. So there's other movies we could do, but I don't know that they would stand up to the same level of thought and scrutiny and detail.
Agreed. I know that you joked around saying Aquaman, but it would be a little funny.
I'm not joking, Rick. I'm not joking.
Okay, well, it would be funny to hear you guys talk about a Jason Momoa movie, considering that Jason Momoa is Zoe Kravitz's stepdad.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Here's the thing.
Well done.
Let's revisit Zoe Kravitz. Let me just take a second.
God damn it, Rick, I can't believe you opened this wound.
Julia, it was cold that day.
It was cold every day.
I have a lot to say about this, obviously, but she's, of the women in the film, including, I would say, maybe even Charlize Theron, she has had a massive career upswing since Mad Max Fury Road. She is the wife to take off, it seems. And I don't fucking get it. Sorry for cursing. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get what happened. Why didn't Toast the Knowing go get a career? Riley Keough seems pretty great.
Well, Riley Keough has worked a lot since
but not
then.
like Zoe Kravitz. She's on covers of magazines. She's bland.
Well, have you seen her in anything since then?
I refuse. There's shows I want to watch that she's in. I refuse to watch.
Yeah, I have no interest in following her career.
Isn't she in Pretty Little Liars?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes,
Maybe.
she is. Yes, she is in that.
Okay.
I know what she's in because I have a problem, but I refuse to watch it. Yeah, I don't
You
get
still
it.
have to see Dope.
The Mad Max Minute Instagram account follows all of the wives. And, I mean, they all seem to be having pretty good times. I know Rosie Huntington-Whiteley is running around being Jason Statham's baby mama. They're married.
That's cool.
It's not.
I
as
did not
crude as
know
them.
that.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for
Rosie
both of them.
Huntington-Whiteley
That's a
married
beautiful
Jason Statham.
I'm Gatham for Statham, so I'm disappointed.
But yeah,
I never heard that.
You've never heard that?
No, it's good.
But yeah, after having a fake movie baby and having it not go well, she had a real life baby and it went very well. And
Great.
Better than the other way around.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then Courtney Eaton and Riley Keough had been living their best lives on Instagram, posting fun vacation pictures and things like that. Zoe Kravitz does a ton of work, just a ridiculous amount of things.
Yeah.
And then who did I not mention? Abby Lee. She's doing modeling still.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But that was her thing all along. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to see Riley Keough do more acting. In fact, I'm going to go check out and see what she's done.
Because it's been 4 years.
That was not a randomly pulled choice. I think she's phenomenal in Fury Road.
Me too. I think she's beautiful, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it during the movie, Rick, but I would like to bring it up when we review the wives and their arcs. She also does good eye acting.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
You guys cover a lot of eye acting on your podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a serious manner, sometimes in a comedic manner. Like when we had a couple of our friends here in the studio, we were talking about the scenes where Max is fighting the Doof Warrior on the Doof Wagon, and some of his expressions, Tom Hardy, just the eyes that he makes have
he's good at eyes. He's good at eyes, and he's good at grunt acting.
Oh, yeah.
He is a grunter like no one else. He can communicate volumes. As a matter of fact, in the show Taboo, which I will call his show because he was in charge of so much of it. He was a producer on it.
Yeah.
But which I loved, by the way. Somebody cut together a grunt, just cut all the grunts together from that show, and he's just really good at it.
That's
like
great.
They communicate
Expressive
volumes. He doesn't need words. This guy, he's just too good. He's too good for words.
Yeah, we watched Taboo. I think because it was Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
We did find it weird that his dad was a writer on that show, and it was all about the main character, like, wanting to sleep with his biological sister, was it? Or was it a stepsister? I don't remember.
I believe it was biological.
But it's just weird, because the show's called Taboo, so they got to have taboo stuff in it. But that's
all
a whole
joking
other
aside. Can we talk about Aquaman for a second?
All right, so I actually haven't seen Aquaman yet, which I
enjoyed
a little bad about.
Let me cue you up here on this, Rick. You can cut this out, but I need to get it off my chest because I hadn't realized until we started talking about it. It's kind of a joke answer, but I'm also realizing I'm pretty serious about it because Mad Max is what you get. Fury Road specifically is what you get when you have all of the best ideas and they're curated and they're organized and they're laid out and inserted in exactly the right way and the right special effects are done. Great. Aquaman's what you get if you have literally 10 billion ideas crammed in a blender. And you said, well, we don't have time to sort them out. Let's put them all on screen in a random order. That movie is brimming with ideas. There's so many ideas in Aquaman. They don't necessarily connect or relate in any definable way that makes sense to you. But if you want to just see a cacophony of crazy ideas, I'm all into it, man.
There you go.
Go see it.
You're starting from the point where Jango Fett and Dr. Chase Meridian from Batman Forever, because that is the role that I think of when I think of Nicole Kidman. Like they get together and have Jason Momoa, which technically makes Aquaman stepbrothers with Boba Fett when you think about it.
Wow.
Oh, I like that. You also have Willem Dafoe with a top knot, you guys.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe has a top knot and can swim ultra fast underwater and twirls a trident.
And almost an arbitrary scene that really makes me think that this was James Wan's sort of backdoor Call of Cthulhu, sort of backdoor Call of Cthulhu pilot. He's like, no, guys, this is a movie I really want to make. Look, I'm going to show you I can do it. Yeah.
I love it. Go see it. Also, Julie Andrews is the voice of a sea monster, you guys.
Yeah.
What are you doing not watching this? Yes, why are you not watching this movie?
Yeah.
Julie Andrews is the voice of a sea monster.
Dolph Lundgren.
Oh,
okay,
God.
Is Dolph Lundgren the voice of a dolphin?
No.
Oh, that would have been too good.
Too on the
Missed
nose.
opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
James
I
Wan,
just
get it
banged the
together.
desk. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
All right, back to Mad Max. I'm so sorry.
You know what? I actually want to do a quick lore question with you guys. Throw it by you. Who do you think is the first History Man?
I believe we had this conversation before.
Did we not read it in the comics? Is it not in there?
Or was it, was it coming up in the comics or a conversation with a guest once?
Now, keep in mind, I haven't listened to all of the guest episodes.
No.
Neither have we.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't remember these things. I think it's in the comics.
It is the first sort of communicator, chronicler of history. Unless you're saying, is it a character from the movie that we've met? Is it the feral kid grown up? Is it, which it couldn't really be if you're tracking timelines and all that. That was a theory of mine, and somebody corrected me. They're like, yeah, but that doesn't track.
I have a clear answer for this. I have an opinion.
Go with your opinion.
Yeah, which is this: is that we meet I don't know her name in the film or character name, but the teacher with all the tattoos all over her body.
Yeah, Miss Kitty.
Miss Kitty.
Yeah, right, Miss Kitty. I think that there is a tradition amongst the intellectuals and academics in the society that you preserve history because paper becomes at a premium, obviously. So human skin becomes the way to preserve history. And the first History Man, I think, is the first person to start tattooing his body with the history of the world so they didn't lose it. And so I think he's not around in the film, certainly. I don't know if he's a progenitor of a whole group of people that do this, or if it's simply one man who did it. He's the only History Man. He's now dead or whatever. But I think that is the character we're talking about.
And then Miss Kitty carried on the tradition.
I think Miss Kitty is in that tradition, yeah.
She was, okay, yeah.
And then when you get into the comic book, after Miss Kitty, you have another History Man who's all tatted up, which Mark Sexton was helpful enough to point out that History Man in the comic was modeled specifically after Nico Lothoris,
Cool.
which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think the first History Man is the unseen George Miller director cameo.
Tell me more about everything you're saying, please.
Like we know that there are directors who like to put themselves into movies. George Miller is not one of those directors. But if he were to be put into a Mad Max film, he would have to be, in my opinion, the first History Man.
Oh, here's my only pushback to that idea. I think that the quote that they show here is both, no offense to any of the writers, I think it is intentionally florid, and I think it is intentionally boldly metaphorical. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that George Miller is either of those things as a director or a creator. So I would push back that it's not his style, it being too on the nose and a little too florid for his tastes.
Has anybody checked if this is a real quote or similar to a real quote?
We don't do research.
Yeah.
Although we have been informed, I think, and that did come up in conversation with the guest, and it was created for this. I don't know if it was inspired by another quote.
That's true.
But it does not exist in the world before this movie. In our world.
Everything I've read about it just says it's a George Miller quote from this movie.
Okay.
I wish George Miller would do more on-screen director, Hitchcockian director cameos, because he's a handsome man.
He's a good-looking guy.
And especially for his age.
Yeah. Hi, George.
Hi, George.
If you're hearing
I
this.
just put that in there in case you were...
No, I know. No, I think it's a cool theory. To me, it reeks of childhood wonder and sort of a youthful thought process about spirituality in this wasteland. And it doesn't sound like George Miller to me. It sounds like a character that was constructed.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the movie specifically is concerned, it's obviously referring to Max at the end of this movie, because Max is out there in search of his better self, and he's wondering where does he have to go, because the Citadel is not the place that he should go in search of his better self. So somewhere out there in the wasteland is the place that he needs to go. And I'm hoping against hope that somewhere out there exists an office that is still open, and inside there is a psychiatrist with an empty couch so that Max can go lie down and finally work through his trauma instead of just running away from it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I think that the answer is in the text and in the film, which is the answer to where they should be is where they started. The answer is home, right? And the answer to where his better self, where he has to go, he has to at some point, and he starts to at the end of this film, which is beautiful. It's where a normal first act would leave off in a film in a way. Like, he has a moment of realization that there's something beyond him. There's something that he can do for other people. And I think that the answer to where must he go in search of his better self, well, the answer is inside of himself, right? And he hasn't realized that yet. He's going to keep going physically other places instead.
Okay, something just came into my head.
I saw it happen.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
We saw it.
All right. Now, Hollywood loves trilogies. So I'm not going to say that the next movie should be this, but possibly the third movie in the Tom Hardy Mad Max trilogy, because in this magical fairyland that I've invented in my head, George Miller has time to do that, aside from the other projects that he's working on. But have the second movie be some sort of smaller scale adventure, but have the third movie Max going back to all of the bombed out and ruined places that we saw in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Have like the opening scene being him finding the burned out remains of the truck that he shackled Johnny the boy to. Have him go back to May Swayze's farm, going to the spot where Jesse died, like going back to
the beginning,
the MFP, and finding people in that city he used to occupy and deciding to help them, not out of coercion or out of a situation where he has no choice but to help them, but actually getting to that point where he's like, you know what, I'm going to do this because I need my own redemption. I need my Furiosa moment where I do something that betters humanity. And what better place to do it than in the bombed out wreckage of the city where I lost everything.
But through the goal, though, of understanding himself. Pure philanthropy is not a Max quality and never will be. And I think it's unrealistic to sort of give him that or to have him learn that. But I do think that in the idea of philanthropy via selfishness is an interesting idea of, like, I'm doing this and it happens
to get rid of my nightmares.
People. Yeah, but it's to stop the nightmares. Yeah, it's to come to terms with what I am fundamentally as an animal on this planet.
To exorcise the demons.
Yeah. Well, here's to more movies. I hope that happens.
Right. You would think that didn't it? Mad Max Fury Road just got named by, what was it? The Film Critics Association. Was it one of the greatest films of all time? Something like. I mean, literally everybody came to the same conclusion that we all did, which is it's truly one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they just got around to naming Citizen Kane too, so it's fine. They take time with these sorts of.
I'm just glad that it didn't have to go up against Green Book at the Oscars. That would have been what a colossal travesty that would have been.
Oh,
I mean, I don't want to go around just calling things Oscar bait, but it kind of helped that Green Book came out tied to the end of a stick dangled in front of the metaphorical horse.
Yeah, it's not the right thing.
Yeah,
my mom loved it though.
But I loved Yesterday. I saw Yesterday and I loved it, and it's clearly asking for sort of the same type of accolades, but in a much better way.
Now, if you had to spitball or imagine your ideal Mad Max movie to follow up Fury Road, not to be a prequel or anything, but to follow Max's story forward, do you have any ideas or visions of that?
That's hard because I always imagined that next movie would be a Furiosa movie. I think we all were sort of led to believe that, but I don't think it. I mean, if the next film was just a purely Furiosa film, it wouldn't be a Mad Max film anymore. It'd be in that world, but it has to be about his journey. It has to be about his continuing journey to exercise, to make everything better in his head again. I like where you were going with that.
Yeah, I think fundamentally it should be. I'm sorry. Go.
No. Go.
I think fundamentally it's really hard, I think, to pitch a Mad Max film that's done properly because it's not a pitchable thing. There's a reason these things are storyboarded. There's a reason they exist in visual language and not in verbal language on a pitch thing. Because if you pitch Mad Max Fury Road's plot to someone, they think you're insane. That's one of your favorite films?
Right.
Yeah, these guys go and then they come back and it's cool. It's super cool. It's super great movie.
Right.
You know, it's really hard to pitch verbally, but that's what makes it so wonderful and rich. And I think that I would pitch something. For me, I think I haven't thought about this till now, but I think I would deepen the what apocalypse means today versus what it meant when Mad Max started as a theory. The idea of rationing of water, you know, the inevitable sort of desertification of the world. What does apocalypse mean to us today? What metaphors can be wrung from that? And then having Max get chased through that and sort of get somewhere. I mean, I think it's a fine place to start for me, and I think the details would sort of enrich themselves as you developed a brainstorming process for that. But it's really hard to think of like a narrative plot for that because all of them would fall short, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have to wonder, would Mad Max be the same style of movie if he went somewhere that wasn't reddish brown? Like
say underwater, like with Willem Dafoe?
Well, maybe not underwater, but maybe take an idea from the Avalanche video game and put him out in the dried up ocean. Like, there are vast spaces in the video game where you're driving through bleached, dried out chunks of coral. And the settlements are inside of giant ships that are just left on the ocean floor.
Yeah, that's cool. Right. That'd be fun. I bet you're onto something there in terms of a set piece, at least, or something they could do in that new one.
Because we were talking when Furiosa was talking about, we can make it 160 days. And we were talking about, okay, well, if you go 7 miles a day for 160 days, you can get to mainland Asia from Alice Springs, which is arguably the center of Australia. Mm-hmm. I know it's not the exact geographic center of Australia, but whatever.
Yuri and I really are detail-oriented guys, so we care about those things. Go on.
But I don't know, is the setting that we saw in Road Warrior, is the setting that we saw in Beyond Thundernova and Fury Road, is it that linked to the Mad Max style that you could not pull him out of that somehow?
I'd love to see it tried.
Could he go to somewhere like Vietnam?
Yeah.
I worry about it becoming Rambo or something in terms of like on-the-nose metaphors about conflict. So I like that there's a vagueness to the metaphor that invites you meeting it halfway. You know, metaphors that are too clear don't meet you halfway because they've already gone 90% of the way. You have to like just understand it. And I like the sort of intentional obfuscation of the thing when ultimately it's just a story about a guy. And sure, you can project all this stuff onto it. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. But that's art that makes you work is better art, in my opinion. I would say.
But could you imagine it in a different setting?
Well, what I mean is I think
physically a different. I mean, without saying this country, that country, whatever, or this.
Well, the seabed, I think, is a wonderful idea. Yeah. It's a wonderful sequence. But I would see that as almost tertiary to the pitch of the film. Like, I think it would just come after what is going on with Max first and foremost, and then what does death of the world and apocalypse mean on a global scale to us as people, fundamentally as a society, and then like locations feel like they fill in just like the background noise in a way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the hallmarks of this movie is the visuals and how saturated and overwhelming and almost emotional they are. That's George Miller, that's Margaret Sixel. They are taking what they have and making it fantastic. And they could do the same thing in any post-apocalyptic setting.
Yeah. I think visually it's going to be stunning regardless. I mean, Yuri and I watched the trailer for Mad Max again before we started recording. Tears.
Just to fire us up.
Just like boners and tears over here.
Boners and Tears is the name of our next podcast.
Starring Yuri and Travis. It'll be our new Grinder podcast.
Yeah, and it's funny. I had a conversation recently with one of our previous guests, Joe Lynch, about the color version and the black and chrome version, and it's an easy choice for me. I really enjoyed the black and chrome version. It had a different feel. I felt different emotions when I was watching it, but I would choose that oversaturated, super amazing thing that he did in Fury Road over, even what George Miller says was his original idea and was the purest, whatever. There's only one choice for me.
Yeah. Part of the visual language of the film is it tells you, without ever having to say it, that, we're in mythic, iconic territory here. Like, when Gandalf rides down this, and at the end of Battle of Helm's Deep on his horse, with the lightning coming out of his staff, basically this massive light, you're like, we're in iconic myth territory. If you didn't know it from the dragons and stuff, but like the visual language of the film, I think is really important because it lets you know we're in a heightened reality here. Like we're in grounded, fucking gritty territory, but also these colors almost don't exist in nature in certain ways. And this is a myth. This is bold, big, larger than life storytelling. And that language is important to me because it's not the language of the first Mad Max, in my opinion. No. I think it's a different visual language. It says something different about where we are and what we're doing in a story.
Yeah, agreed.
Yuri agrees with that.
I agreed.
Make a note that Yuri agreed with me.
For once.
Yes.
Well, it's on public record now.
Exactly.
You guys recorded are we recording this?
Not yet, no.
Oh, we should probably hit that record button.
Oh, right.
All right, start over. Hold on.
Welcome to the Mad Max. Aside from the obvious answer of having Mad Max cross over with Aquaman, is there a series that you would like to see Max stumble his way into? I know that we joked around a lot on this podcast about, Max just has to go to New Zealand and he'll find Lord of the Rings, or he just has to go such and such a place and wizards are real, like Harry Potter. Like,
sure.
Is there anything that stands out to you two that you'd like to see overlap? Maybe not in a serious way, but maybe just in a fun, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him fight Creed. That'd be kind of a cool thing. Their fighting styles would be pretty different. I almost feel like for me that the isolation of Max is so part of the character that I could watch a movie with just Max. Like I really could fundamentally watch that and be like Castaway. Like maybe it's Max and a volleyball. Like that's what I'm pitching. That'd be cool.
Or Max and Batman, because they're both such similarly minded, like, deep, dark, troubled guys. They would just they'd just have they'd be just constantly be trying to outgrim each other.
Outgrunt each other.
It would have a very different feel, but the idea of having Max all by himself kind of reminds me of Tom Hardy's movie Locke from 2013, where it's just him in the car.
Yeah, which is
That's
delicious.
Right.
I love that movie.
It's definitely on our list.
With Creed in the back seat.
Yeah, working out doing crunches.
Right.
Max is working as an Uber driver.
Right. That's great. We could call it Moober instead of Stuber. That'd be good. Did you hear? I'm sure you guys covered this on your podcast, but just in reference to something you were saying earlier, Chris Nolan in 2 movies cast Tom Hardy for his eyes. Like he's a great eye. Yeah. Go back to your eye acting point. That as the pilot in Dunkirk, and then obviously Bane. But more specifically, he's like, we need a guy we can just see the top half of his face, and it doesn't have any lines really.
Strawberries are packed with fiber. You can only see my eyes. It's enough.
Is that a Tom Hardy Metamucil commercial?
That's it.
What was that?
Metamucil.
Keeps you regular.
Regular.
Don't live your bowels in the shadows. What about you guys? Do you have an answer to that you've sort of cracked on your own?
This is going to sound bad, but bear with me for a second.
I can't wait.
Great.
I would like to see Mad Max crossover with, not this specifically, but like the idea of it, Mortal Engines. Now, hold on.
Okay.
In Mortal Engines, the whole idea is that you've got a rolling city.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Max discover a rolling city sort of place.
That doesn't seem weird at all. That seems totally
it seems
a fine
totally
pitch.
in line with it.
Okay.
No, I'm with your pitch. I don't think it's weird. Yeah, we're just nodding. You don't have to even stop us. You don't have to say stop. Don't yell at me because we're not yelling. We're agreeing with you. We think that seems like a fine idea.
Mortal Engines did not do great at the box office, probably because they tried to cram too many things into too small of a canister.
Mm-hmm.
But having Max either come across a caravan or have a caravan come across him, I think would be a good kickoff to another Mad Max movie. Because he always seems to be stumbling upon or going towards these settlements that have their own rules, and he's got to either try to conform to those rules or buck against those rules. And we've yet to see a group of people that live their life nomadically in roughly the same way that Max does.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I do wonder, as we're talking about sequels and things, which, obviously if we were better podcast hosts, we'd have had this conversation already or thought about it, which I have not done. But part of the joy of the movie for me is just the explosion of world building. This is like I was saying earlier, basically an act one of a thing where you've set up your world, you set up your conflict, and here we go. But the arms race of different sort of Darwin's Finch's, evolution going on in this world is so mesmerizing and so interesting. And another movie could do it with a wholly different group of tribes and different groups of people, but it would feel derivative, I think, in that way. And so they've done the thing in this world that I think, for me personally, is a thing I really love about storytelling and about world building. That I wonder if the unwelcome insertion of plot into the equation would really, get me, frustrated or maybe make me enjoy it less.
Possible.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that.
I've got another one. Max and Deadpool have to team up.
Oh.
Because they're so it's just so temperamentally and character wise, or Deadpool would drive Mad Max mad. He would. That's
funny. A buddy road movie.
Buddy road movie
with Deadpool and Mad Max.
That makes a lot of sense because you can't kill Deadpool. So who's going to survive the apocalypse? Deadpool.
Yeah. Well done.
Oh, Julia, you just made it all work.
Well done.
And Max would try to run over Deadpool or throw him off a building.
He would try to kill him, absolutely.
All the time.
Yeah. A guy who talked his ear off and he couldn't kill. That's like the great foil to Max.
Right, the talker versus the grunter. Yeah.
Good. Very good.
So that's how the original Deadpool got his mouth sewn shut.
Max did.
He ran into Max Rockatansky.
That's right. Yep.
We don't talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine in this house. I'm sorry that you're just losing. I'm sorry that you're just learning that rule, but
do we talk about Logan in this house? Yeah. Logan rules.
I think we should talk about Logan.
Yeah, I love Logan.
Because I'm not sure if this is canon or if this is kind of Mad Max Minute canon now, because sometimes it's hard to differentiate that. I have this idea in my head of Mel Gibson returning, and not anymore, he's just too old now, but returning to play an older Mad Max a la Logan.
I like this.
A Max that has lived his entire life, who has never dealt with his issues, who has one last chance to find peace, to find something.
Much like Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Did you guys see Dragged Across Concrete? Holy crap.
Were you really as offended as
no,
I just felt
it.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, no, me too.
I liked it
because I know a lot of people were offended, and then I saw it, and I'm like, I don't.
Well, it's supposed to be offensive.
Yeah.
Sorry, we haven't seen it, but I do have a copy of it sitting in my download folder.
Okay, clear off 4 hours of your day, because man, it's a long movie, and just buckle up for a weird movie that people hate that I thought was gross and cool.
Yeah,
it's gross. I mean, that movie is a gross racist mess. And I kind of like it. Not because I'm racist, but because I like seeing how I like it the way I like Boondock Saints. which is like, boy, that's a disaster of a person.
Oh my gosh.
But there's something about that singular vision on screen that I find interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of Boondock Saints, as soon as you mentioned Willem Dafoe in Aquaman, I can just picture in my head the image of Willem Dafoe on a beach somewhere saying, "There was a trident fight!"
Yes. Yes.
Oh, so many good crossover pitches in this episode.
I know.
I wonder, just on Logan for a second. I mean, Logan, I am annoyed that Logan wasn't the last superhero movie of all time. I'm annoyed that it didn't kill the genre. It should have killed the genre. I think it set out to kill the genre.
It should have killed the genre.
And I think it did, and we just didn't recognize it.
Nobody. Just people kept going anyway because there was still money in it. But
it certainly should have killed the X-Men genre.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of superheroes in a way, it was a shot across the bow of the superhero idea. So the idea of a older Max coming back and looking at the idea of moral Earth and personal apocalypse is super cool. It's super interesting, I think.
And Nicholas Hoult exists in both universes. He exists in the X-Men universe and in the Fury Road universe.
True story.
It would have forced us to return to the beginning. The original Mad Max wasn't this action-packed fire and death everywhere sort of movie. It was more personal.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing in an older Mel Gibson, he wouldn't have been able to do the same things that Tom Hardy could. They would have had to make a movie that was a little bit more low-key in the action department.
Some people are more themselves as artists when they're younger, and some people, I think, the more they have more experience and larger budgets, they're able to say more of what they want and be more who they are. Like Bret Easton Ellis, I think, his truest expression of himself was probably when he was 22 years old. Like, I think he's been a shell of that ever since in certain ways. But I think George Miller is really refining the thing he fundamentally wants to say and the experience he wants to provide to people as he gets older. So I expect, whatever form it takes, that if there is another Mad Max, I have to think it'll continue to be better and better. I just trust that process.
Now that we've brought it up, I would love for Tom Hardy and George Miller to take like a week and shoot a Mad Max version like Locke with just Max in his car for the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden that's I like just as a sort of like a bridge movie between the last movie and whatever the next thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Just as like a little one-off.
Yeah, and maybe the person in the movie who dies is Zoe Kravitz, and it could be a great there'd be a great full circle. It'd be wonderful.
Would there be a full circle?
Yeah, I would feel completed, and she'd be standing on a sign that says "Guzzolene," and Max would lean outside of the window and blow it up with a bomb and just keep driving, and that's the plot of the film. The end.
I love the idea of a just Max movie or short or anything. Most of his life has been spent alone, and we just kind of duck in when something interesting happens to him.
Yeah.
But there's something to be done there for sure.
Most of his time is spent alone.
No, I'm with you. I legitimately am pitching that as a real idea. And
the ghosts of the people from his past would occasionally show up in the back seat to talk to him. Nux would show up, and I'm like,
yes.
They would all be there because they're all in his head. I mean, arguably all of these characters are in his head, from a certain perspective.
And Fury Road has shown us that he does hallucinate, and
he's haunted. Yeah.
He's got a certain level of psychosis going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you most like to see come back as a ghost to torment Max?
Are you kidding? That's the dumbest question ever.
Okay.
Jesse.
Jesse is the obvious. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Are you guys a couple? Because I really felt like I got a sense into what your home life might be like, and I love it. I love it so much.
Julia and I kind of have what you two have, except there's less high-fiving.
Can I suggest
maybe we need to
introduce it?
Can I suggest more high-fiving?
High-fiving is really. If we weren't tied together via headphones right now, we would high-five. But I can't imagine it would work.
We're already cheek to cheek, and it would be possibly dangerous.
Yeah. I don't know. I could think of some people. The helicopter pilot would be cool. That guy's cool.
Yes.
Into that guy.
Which version? Him from Thunderdome or him from Road Warrior?
No, him from Thunderdome. And then also the blind saxophone player.
Right. I was wondering who was going to pick bring him up first. You or me?
Yeah.
I had him on tap for a second and then lost it.
Yeah. Who else?
Do these people have to be dead?
Oh, good question.
No.
Or
No,
can
I
they
don't
still
think
be
so.
alive and they just his own personal ghosts?
Still alive.
Yeah.
I would definitely love to see Goose come back, but like have it be. You remember in I think it's American Werewolf in London where his buddy comes back, but he's all like scarred
As
up.
a
Like
remnant.
bring
Rip
back
and
Goose
done.
Rip and
as
done, yeah.
It would
a
have to be the hospital goose that Max could not look at.
like
Yeah.
the beef jerky goose.
Beef jerky goose. Yeah.
Which applies to 2 different movies, actually.
Yeah. One goose is objectively better than the other. I'm sorry, Top Gun.
Anthony Edwards is pretty great. But
Yeah,
In
but he's
Miracle
no Steve
Mile.
Bisley.
yeah, I left off the second half of that sentence. Anthony Edwards is pretty great, ... rarely. Who else? That's a good game. People we missed from previous.
So first movie, obviously, Jesse and Goose.
Mhm.
Nobody cares about Sprague.
Yeah, well, Sprague barely contributed to the first movie in the first place. The most extreme thing he did was play with a loaded gun in the middle of the living room.
And get over it.
I'd love to see the feral kid from Road Warrior, but with like a fully advanced vocabulary. So like
The grown-up feral kid.
Yeah, but he's grown up but the form of him is still the feral kid, but he can communicate.
Yes.
Oh, is the guy at the end of Thunderdome? Is that anything to do with the History Man? Sorry, I'm going back to the beginning of the podcast.
Where they're all in the building, in the blown out building with the kids.
Is that connected in any way?
Oh.
Like Savannah?
Because they're teaching they're teaching the class. Yeah, it's like
part of my brain's been working on that the whole time. Sorry.
And she was telling stories.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a different kind of history keeping.
I'm going to say no because they practice an oral tradition and the history men and women of more of the Citadel part of the continent practice a tattooing tradition.
Yeah.
Right.
At some point it mutated, or you think one changed into the other a la Plato, or do you think it is a different track?
I think different track.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think it would be interesting to reincorporate the tribe who left Savannah's group. I know we joked a couple of times during the regular season about Max being buried in sand and then Savannah walks up again because she had to leave the city or something like that. But according to Mark Sexton, specifically, the tribe that left are still in Sydney. They just happen to be living alongside the Buzzards.
Huh.
Because the Buzzards also live in Sydney. They just live underneath it.
Right. In that old bombed out mall.
Can someone who's listening cut out everything Mark Sexton has ever said from any podcast he's been on and just string it together and transcribe it and publish it as a book that's like a history of Mad Max? Because I feel like he has all the answers. He just doles them out sparingly. Some sort of stingy wizard.
Yeah, I'm a little
Mark
miffed.
Sexton, stingy wizard.
Yeah, business card.
I'm a little miffed that there is info from Mark Sexton on the IMDb page of the next Mad Max movie, and he never mentioned anything about it to us.
He's a weird occult wizard who is just holding back things from us mortals, and I hate it.
Or he's about to call us after he listens to this to say that all that is bullshit and that he.
I hope so. I hope
none of those
it's not
things
all
can be
bullshit.
attributed to him.
Yeah.
Either that or he's going to call us to let us know that Warner Brother assassins are coming to track us all down.
Right.
You delete that episode
We've
right
broken
now.
some into some
Steven
serious
is
NDAs.
already dead.
Yeah.
By the time you hear this podcast, the 4 of us will be dead.
That's great. Oh, what if we are dead when this comes? That'd be really sad. If Yuri and I are dead when you guys hear this.
We'll play some nice memorial music at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, we can't because we'd be dead too. Like I said, we're recording this in June.
Yeah, that's why you gotta get it edited and in the can and posted to drop in December.
Yeah, do that in case we die.
This is like the Blair Witch
That's
Project.
why
You're
we
gonna
have to get
find
all the editing done before we go
recordings
on
later.
vacation in August.
Found footage podcast is funny.
That's too much. That's too much.
Too much.
Either way, here at the end of this episode, is there anything that you would like our listeners to go check out that you've been working on or that is just out there that they can listen to, aside from the You Are Awaited podcast?
I have another podcast called Does Your Favorite Movie Suck? ? Does Your Favorite Movie Suck? Yuri's been a guest on that before and probably will be again at some point. It's great if you like movies. It's revisiting classic films from the 80s and 90s that actually might suck. It's And it turns out some of them do.
But not all of them.
Not all of them. Some are actually wonderful. Oh, George Miller does. Yuri's on the episode where we reviewed George Miller's Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. One of the 4 in that
right.
movie.
All right.
And that's a very good episode if you want to start there somewhere. Other than that, I don't think so. If you guys haven't seen the episode of Electric Dream, Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams that I co-wrote, maybe check that out.
Mm-hmm. And if you can find it, it was much more exciting watching it live. But Orbital Redux was a show that I did for Geek and Sundry end of last year. It's it was live streamed sci-fi, so where everything was done live. The visual effects, the music, all the editing, everything performed start to finish. 20-minute episodes, all streamed live.
Nice.
That sounds very cool.
And Yuri, I think you were also in a little indie video game called Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yes. If you haven't bought Spider-Man yet, go buy Spider-Man. Yes, it was. That is truly one of my proudest moments.
I like to think that you being Spider-Man was one of the reasons that we weren't able to book you guys for Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, go with that.
It's hard being Spider-Man, you guys. It takes up a lot of time.
They did monopolize my time.
I will say the fact that Yuri and I haven't put out another podcast is testament to our respective business. And by respective, I mean Yuri's busy and I sit at home and wait for him to return my calls. But we're going to put out something else at some point, I'm sure. So
yes, we have.
Stick around.
We have recorded some episodes of a podcast that we're just looking for a home that'll inspire us to then keep it going. So.
Well, if you get around to releasing said episode, just let us know and we'll try and signal boost it any way we can.
Thank you. We absolutely will.
You guys are great. Yeah, thanks for having us on. This is super cool. And I'm excited for the impending close of your journey, but also sad for you. I think in the whole world, we're the 2 people most closely able to understand the excitement and sorrow and all those wrapped up mix of feelings that you're probably starting to feel. So we, from 2 hosts to another, we applaud you and we understand, and we're excited that you come to the end of this journey.
There's the applause. There's the applause. Or that, and a high five.
Hup! Yeah!
Yeah. It's been great having you both. I'm so glad we were able to reconnect after all of this time.
Same.
And as for our listeners, we are going to be coming back on Monday. There are more credits to watch and for us to completely ignore, which means that it is going to be time for us to do our analytic episodes. So come back on Monday to hear us talk a little bit more about the title character of Mad Max Fury Road.
The Mad Max Minute podcast is a fan project by Rick and Julia Ingham.
The Mad Max franchise was created by George Miller and Byron Kennedy, is presented by Kennedy Miller Mitchell Productions, and distributed by Warner Brothers.
Mad Max Minute is produced and edited by Rick Ingham. Our opening music is Verdi's Dies Irae by Daniel Bautista of danielbautista.com.
Our home on the internet is madmaxminute.com. You can follow us on Twitter at madmaxminute, like us on Facebook by searching for Mad Max Minute, and join our Facebook listener group, Mad Max Minute Beyond Microphone.
If you'd like to support the podcast, visit madmaxminute.com, where you can see what's in our TeePublic store, join our Patreon, or even donate to the show to help us keep the tanks full.
Thank you for joining us for minute 114 of Fury Road. See you next time.